Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by actors? People wearing masks every day, pretending to be something they're not. Here's the profound truth. Once you learn to read between the lines, you'll see right through the performance. I remember sitting in a meeting where everyone was nodding and smiling, but beneath those practiced expressions lay hidden agendas. It was all revealed in the subtle details, the positioning of feet, the telling silences, the carefully measured pauses. Once you learn to recognize these signs, you'll never see people the same way again. Ready to uncover what they're really hiding? The first technique is deceptively simple, yet remarkably powerful. The tell me more approach. This method is like possessing a superpower without the flashy costume, and the best part is that no one realizes you're using it. It's elegantly simple, yet devastatingly effective. All you do is sit back, remain calm, and when someone passionately shares their perspective, instead of jumping in with your opinion or debating them, you present them with 3 transformative words. Tell me more. I discovered this during what began as an argument about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I was prepared to counter every point they made, but something shifted, and instead of debating, I simply smiled and said, "Tell me more." What unfolded was extraordinary. They began discussing pizza, but soon were sharing childhood memories, family dinners, beloved foods, and even a peculiar story about their childhood aversion to pineapple. It wasn't about pizza anymore. It had become a deep exploration of their inner world, all triggered by 3 simple words. When people feel truly heard, their defenses naturally dissolve. Without the need to defend themselves or argue back, they end up sharing far more than they initially planned. You create a sanctuary of understanding, a space where they feel comfortable enough to drop their usual protective barriers. They believe they're simply making conversation, but in reality, they're revealing their motivations, fears, insecurities, and hopes, all without realizing it. I've employed this technique in business meetings, with friends, and even with people who were clearly being somewhat deceptive. During one negotiation, instead of pushing my agenda, I continuously said, "Tell me more." By the conversation's end, the other party had revealed their entire strategy, explaining why they desperately needed the deal. They practically handed me the keys to their kingdom, and all I did was listen. It felt almost too effortless, but here's the deeper truth. This isn't merely a tactic for gathering information or winning arguments. It's about authentic connection. In a world where everyone rushes to speak but few truly listen, Tell Me More becomes a pathway to understanding people on a profound level. It forces you to step outside your ego, to stop planning your next response, and to genuinely care about the other person's perspective. When you ask people to explain themselves without judgment, you offer them a rare gift, being truly heard. In that moment, you build trust, understanding, and sometimes even healing. This technique reflects core Stoic teachings, empathy without attachment. You're not trying to manipulate or control the conversation. You're simply observing, understanding, and remaining centered. It's not just about reading people, it's about seeing them for who they truly are and allowing them space to reveal their authentic selves. So the next time you're in conversation, whether casual chat, negotiation, or heated debate, try the Tell Me More technique. You'll be amazed at how much deeper the conversation becomes, how much people reveal, and how easily you come to understand them without ever having to push. Beyond winning conversations, you'll discover that this approach builds genuine human connections, grounded in respect and authentic curiosity. That's where true power lies, seeing others clearly and through them learning more about yourself. The second insight requires examining how someone treats those they consider beneath them. If you want to understand someone's true character, don't focus solely on how they treat you. Observe their interactions with people they consider beneath them. This principle is somewhat controversial because it reveals harsh truths about human nature. Whether it's a restaurant server, grocery store cashier, or a colleague lower on the corporate hierarchy, how someone interacts with those who hold less power speaks volumes about their authentic self. I learned this lesson the hard way. I once worked with someone who appeared to be the nicest person, charming, funny, always respectful in meetings. But during lunch one day, I witnessed a different side. The moment we sat down, they became rude to the server, barking orders as if they were royalty and the server was beneath them. It was shocking to see how quickly they shifted from friendly and warm to dismissive and arrogant. That was my awakening. This wasn't a momentary lapse, but a reflection of their true character. They were only kind when it benefited them. People reveal their genuine nature when they think no one important is watching. If they're condescending to the server, they'll be condescending to anyone they believe can't fight back. If they're dismissive of a junior colleague, that arrogance and lack of respect will surface in other areas of their life too. The person who's kind to you but rude to others isn't kind. They're calculating. Consider this. When there's no social pressure to be polite, and someone knows they can get away with treating others poorly, that's when their real personality emerges. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior objectively, and this remains one of the clearest indicators of integrity. It's easy to be pleasant when there's something to gain, but true character is revealed when someone has nothing to lose. I've applied this principle in friendships, work relationships, and even dating. It's become a silent test for me. If someone treats the janitor with respect, says thank you to the bus driver, or shows kindness to strangers, that's someone worth knowing. But if they're unnecessarily harsh or dismissive, that's a red flag that cannot be ignored. Here's where it gets even deeper. How we treat others reflects how we see ourselves. People who respect everyone regardless of status are often secure in themselves. They don't need to diminish others to feel important. But those who are cruel to others are often projecting their own insecurities, trying to elevate themselves by stepping on those they deem weaker. It's a form of arrogance that Stoicism teaches us to recognize and avoid in ourselves. So if you want to know who someone truly is, don't be fooled by how they treat people they need to impress. Instead, pay attention to how they treat those with nothing to offer. It's the clearest way to see beyond the mask into the heart of who they really are. Their past is the key to their present. If you want to truly understand someone, take a deep look at their history. People often say the past is behind them, but the truth is it's not really gone. It's shaping everything about who they are today. Whether they realize it or not, their experiences, traumas, victories, and relationships are all influencing how they think, behave, and even treat you in the present moment. This can be controversial because it implies that people don't simply move on, they carry their history with them, and sometimes that history becomes the blueprint for their actions. I had a friend who always seemed on edge, no matter the situation. They were overly defensive, quick to anger, and extremely cautious in relationships. Initially, I thought it was simply their personality, but as I got to know them better, I learned about their past. They had been deeply betrayed by trusted people, experienced financial hardship, and grown up in an environment where they constantly had to prove themselves. The connections became clear. Their defensiveness wasn't random. It was the direct result of feeling they had to protect themselves from being hurt again. Our past experiences leave marks, sometimes scars, and they explain why someone acts as they do. A person who grew up feeling neglected may crave constant attention as an adult. Someone burned by a business partner may now distrust anyone attempting to collaborate with them. The key isn't making excuses for people's behavior, but understanding that they're not always acting from the present moment. They're reacting to echoes from their past. Stoicism teaches us to see things as they are without judgment, and understanding someone's past is part of seeing them clearly. I've witnessed this pattern in romantic relationships repeatedly. You might date someone who seems perfectly fine initially, but then certain patterns emerge. Maybe they're overly jealous or struggle with commitment. 9 times out of 10, if you dig deep enough, you'll discover that past relationships have left wounds that haven't fully healed. It's the fear of being hurt again that drives their present behavior. Understanding this doesn't mean tolerating toxic behavior, but it provides insight into why they're acting as they are. Here's the challenging truth. People often live trapped in cycles, repeating behaviors learned from past experiences. It's as if they're stuck, reliving the same patterns repeatedly without realizing it. That coworker constantly seeking validation is likely replaying a childhood where they never felt good enough. The friend who sabotages every relationship is probably responding to a deep fear of rejection, stemming from past heartbreak. Their reactions, habits, and decisions all mirror the unresolved parts of their past. But understanding someone's past not only helps you navigate your relationship with them, it can also help them break free from these cycles. If you can gently point out the patterns they're repeating, you might help them become more self-aware. In doing so, they might finally confront what they've been avoiding for years. Stoicism emphasizes self-reflection and improvement, and sometimes understanding someone's past allows you to guide them toward bettering themselves. It's easy to judge people based on their current actions, but the past holds the key to understanding the reasons behind those behaviors. When you begin seeing people's actions as responses to their history, you can approach them with greater empathy, while protecting yourself from being drawn into their unresolved issues. In essence, the past is always present. To truly understand someone, you must see the complete picture, not just the chapter they're currently living in. Sudden changes in tone signal lies or hesitation. One of the biggest indicators that someone is lying or hiding something is an unexpected shift in their tone of voice. Most people don't realize it, but our voices often betray what's happening beneath the surface. When someone speaks confidently, their tone is usually steady, their pace even, and their words flow naturally. But when there's deception or hesitation, things change, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. It's as if their subconscious is raising red flags, hoping you'll notice. I once had a coworker who was always smooth-talking, always knew exactly what to say, and always delivered it with charm. But one day, while discussing a project deadline, something shifted. His voice, usually upbeat and confident, suddenly dropped and his words emerged more slowly, almost stuttering. I immediately sensed something was wrong, and sure enough, it turned out he hadn't made any progress on the project, but was trying to cover it up. That shift in tone was the key. He wasn't telling the full truth, and it was written all over how he spoke. Here's why this happens. When people lie or feel uncomfortable with what they're saying, their body and mind enter conflict. Their brain tries to maintain the lie or hide their uncertainty, but their body, specifically their voice, can't help but reflect the stress. It might manifest as a higher pitch, a crack in their voice, or even a pause that feels just a bit too long. It's like their tone is out of sync with their words. Think about the last time you caught someone in a lie. What did their voice sound like? Did they suddenly become quieter, or perhaps they started speaking faster? Maybe their voice took on forced cheerfulness, as if they were trying too hard to sound normal. These are all signs that something isn't right. The shift in tone is a subconscious way of signaling discomfort, whether because they're lying, hiding something, or simply unsure of themselves. It's not just about catching lies either. Sudden tone changes also signal hesitation or uncertainty. I once had a friend who would get really enthusiastic about plans we made, but the moment I suggested something she didn't really want to do, her tone would change instantly. She'd go from excited to monotone, like someone had flipped a switch. That was always my cue that she wasn't fully on board, even if her words suggested otherwise. This phenomenon occurs in relationships, business deals, and casual conversations. You've probably experienced it too, when someone suddenly goes from upbeat and friendly to defensive or evasive, even if their words don't match the shift. It's in those moments you need to pay attention, not to what they're saying, but to how they're saying it. A sudden drop in energy, a shift in pitch or hesitation that wasn't there before, can be the subconscious cue that the person is lying or holding back something important. Here's the deeper Stoic lesson. People often lie not just to deceive others, but to deceive themselves. When their tone changes, it's not always because they're trying to manipulate you. It's often because they're uncomfortable with the lie they're telling themselves. This discomfort seeps into their voice, giving them away without them knowing it. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and this is a prime example of how you can use that observational power. It's also worth noting that we do this to ourselves. How often have you said something you didn't fully believe and noticed your own voice falter? Your tone becomes the mirror of your inner doubt. This is why Stoicism emphasizes the importance of aligning your thoughts, words, and actions. When they're not in harmony, it shows often in ways you can't control. So next time you're in conversation and notice someone's tone shift unexpectedly, whether it's a sudden drop in energy, an awkward pause, or a pitch change, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, what are they holding back? What are they uncomfortable with? It might not be a complete lie, but there's a good chance they're not telling you the whole truth. Their voice is their tell, and if you listen closely, you'll hear it every time. The most honest moments are when they think no one's watching. If you really want to know who someone is at their core, watch them when they think no one's paying attention. These are the moments when people drop the masks they wear for society, the social personas they've crafted, to fit in or get ahead, and reveal their true nature. It's a controversial truth, because most of us would like to think that who we are in public is the same as who we are in private. But the reality is that people often behave very differently when they think no one's looking. I remember working with a manager who was always the picture of professionalism when the boss was around. She'd make polite small talk, maintain a calm demeanor, and never raise her voice. But the moment our higher-ups left the office, it was like she transformed into a completely different person. She'd snap at the team, make condescending remarks, and treat people with zero respect. It was jarring, and it taught me a valuable lesson. The person someone is when they don't think they're being watched is often their most authentic self. When people are in the spotlight, they're hyper-aware of how they're being perceived. They act in ways they believe will earn approval or avoid conflict. But the second they feel they're out of view, the filters drop. You see it in small moments. How they react when they think no one will notice, how they treat people who can't offer them anything, or how they behave when they think they won't be held accountable. It's in these seemingly insignificant interactions that their true self is revealed. This applies to every aspect of life, from relationships to business to everyday encounters. Take romantic relationships, for example. At the beginning of a relationship, both parties are usually on their best behavior, trying to impress one another. But if you really want to know who someone is, observe them during the quiet moments, the ones where they're not actively trying to impress you. How do they treat the server when you're out to dinner? What are they like when they're stressed, or when they think you're not paying attention? Do they still show kindness, patience, and respect, or do they let their guard down and reveal something less flattering? I've seen this play out in social settings too. You might have a friend who's the life of the party when everyone's watching, always cracking jokes and being the center of attention. But when they think no one's noticing, they might act aloof, selfish, or dismissive. Their true character comes through not in the big public moments, but in the small, hidden ones. Here's where the Stoic perspective comes in. As a Stoic, you're trained to observe life objectively and without judgment. People will often reveal their true nature when they think they're off stage, and it's in these moments that you can truly understand them. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is not about how we act when people are watching, but how we behave when no one is. The person who remains kind, patient, and respectful, even when there's no one to applaud them, that's someone who lives in alignment with Stoic values. But the reality is, many people aren't like that. They compartmentalize their public and private selves, acting in ways that serve their image in public, while letting their less appealing traits emerge in private. I had a colleague who was incredibly supportive and warm whenever we were in group meetings. He'd always have something positive to say, and would go out of his way to show support. But when we were alone, his demeanor completely shifted. He was short, dismissive, and uninterested in helping, unless it directly benefited him. That's when I realized his public persona was a facade. The most honest moments aren't when someone's under the spotlight. They're when they think no one's watching. Whether they're acting with kindness or cruelty, it's these unguarded moments that show the truth, and this is where you gain real insight into who they are. If someone can only be good when others are watching, it's not real goodness, it's performance. Here's the deep Stoic message. True character is who you are in the shadows, not in the spotlight. As Stoicism teaches, we must aim to live in alignment with our values at all times, regardless of who's watching. Whether the room is full or empty, a Stoic's actions are consistent because they come from within, not from the need for external validation. When you observe others in their unguarded moments, you'll not only see their truth, but also remind yourself of the importance of living authentically even when no one else is around. So the next time you want to truly understand someone, don't focus on their grand gestures or public persona. Instead, pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. That's when you'll find their real character, and that's where the truth lives. Emotional reactions reveal priorities. If you want to understand what truly matters to someone, look at how they react emotionally in various situations. Emotional reactions are like an unfiltered window into a person's soul. They expose their priorities, their values, and the things they hold dear. This idea can be controversial, because many of us like to think we're in control of our emotions, that we can hide what we really care about. But the truth is, when someone reacts strongly, whether it's anger, excitement, or even anxiety, It's a clear signal that their emotional response is tied to something that matters deeply to them. Let me give you a personal example. I once worked with a colleague who was generally calm and composed. Nothing seemed to faze him. But one day, during a routine meeting, someone suggested a small change to one of his projects and he exploded. I was taken aback by his outburst. It wasn't a big change, and certainly not something you'd expect to trigger such a strong reaction. But here's the thing. His emotional response wasn't about the change itself. It was about the fact that this project was his baby. He had put countless hours into it, and to him it was more than just work, it was personal. That emotional outburst revealed how important that project was to him, even though he'd never explicitly said so before. People don't always tell you what matters most to them with words, but their emotions they can't hide. The boss who reacts angrily when you question his decision, that's not just about protecting his authority. It's because his sense of self-worth is tied to always being right. The friend who gets overly defensive when you point out something small, that's probably because what you mentioned taps into a deep insecurity or a value they hold dear. The excitement someone shows when they get praise for a job well done, that's because recognition is one of their top priorities, even if they'd never admit it. Here's the key: people's strongest emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, reveal their deepest priorities. They might act cool, detached, or indifferent in most situations, but when something they care about is threatened, challenged, or even acknowledged, their emotions flare up. This isn't just limited to negative reactions like anger or frustration, though those are often the most obvious. It's also about the things that bring them joy, make them light up, or get them animated. The excitement someone shows when they're talking about their side hustle or hobby, that's because it matters to them more than you might realize. In relationships, this principle is especially powerful. If you're dating someone and you notice they get disproportionately upset when plans fall through, that's a sign that spending time together is incredibly important to them. If they light up whenever you talk about a future trip or activity, it means that creating shared experiences is a priority. Emotions are always tied to values, and paying attention to someone's emotional cues gives you a clear map of their priorities without them ever having to spell it out. A good example of this is when people get unexpectedly defensive. Let's say you casually mention that someone's been late a few times, and instead of a calm acknowledgement, they get flustered and defensive. That reaction isn't just about the tardiness, it's because punctuality, or the appearance of being reliable, is something they care deeply about. Their emotional outburst is a reflection of how important that aspect of their identity is to them. They don't want to be seen as unreliable, so they lash out to protect that self-image. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior with an objective eye, and emotions are one of the most telling aspects of behavior. When someone's emotions flare, it's because something they value is at stake. You can use this knowledge to better understand people in your life and also to manage your own interactions with them. If you know what triggers their emotions, you can approach sensitive topics with more care, or use that knowledge to build stronger, more understanding relationships. But here's the deeper Stoic lesson. Your emotions reveal your own priorities too. When you find yourself reacting strongly to something, take a moment to reflect on why. Is it because it genuinely matters to you, or are you letting your ego get in the way? Are you getting angry because someone is questioning your integrity? Or are you just upset that your reputation is being challenged? Stoicism teaches us that by understanding our emotional reactions, we can gain greater control over them. We can recognize when our emotions are tied to values that truly matter, and when they're just a reflection of our pride or insecurities. The ability to read people isn't magic. It's about paying attention to the subtle signals they give off. Their emotions, body language, and reactions speak volumes about their true intentions, values, and priorities. Stoicism gives you the edge here by teaching you to observe without judgment. When you can see past the surface and pick up on the real, unspoken truths, you gain clarity in every social interaction. But this skill isn't just about gaining an advantage, it's about understanding. The more you observe others, the more you learn about yourself, what triggers your emotions, what you value, and how you can live in alignment with your principles. By reading people honestly and wisely, you not only navigate life better, but also become a more thoughtful and self-aware person. That's the real power, To use this insight not for manipulation but for wisdom and personal growth.